Will there be time after the presentation for more questions for reps? We have another question online.
Do you think we can jump them in between?
Okay.
These questions?
The question is for Samsung.
Yeah.
It's regarding fluctuating brightness issues on the Samsungs, right? The corrections were made on the Panasonics, but some people online have been encountering it on their Samsung plasmas as well, and they're wondering if Samsung is planning to release some sort of firmware fix for it.
Well, that's something that I haven't really heard about, but then again, like I said yesterday, is I work in the training department, and then there's a service department. I'm actually taking a whole big, whatever you guys were saying today and yesterday, and taking it back to corporate. So
okay, we'll take it back to them, because
absolutely.
There have been some pointed complaints about fluctuating brightness on the Samsungs.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Hey, look at that.
Look at this. Okay, I don't want to.
Kevin, I got a question. It's actually for the Elite guy.
I know, that was terrible. Sorry, John. What's up?
The question, I know early in your presentation you said if you had a problem, you can go on, click the icon for the concierge.
Yeah.
And they can make adjustments there. How are they determining what adjustments to make?
They cannot see your image.
What they would ask you is they play around with some of the color management system areas. And ask the customer, does this look better, does that look better? You can just do regular slider.
So no better than you would actually be doing.
Correct, but a lot of people don't know how to do that. That's the key.
I was just wondering, as far as
those
if they
customers
can
that
see
don't
how
have a
you...
lot of knowledge on televisions, they will be able to help them out significantly. For someone like you, it's a different story.
It's one of the many features of the new Concierge Elite service that's exclusive to the Elite product. It also, do I understand that there might be some diagnostics that can be done remotely?
Yes, minor. We're not going to be able to do a full service call on TV from where we are. We'll be able to take a look at some minor issues.
Not correlated. Oh, wow. The signature series and the monitors.
Well, I mean, I wasn't watching well. Okay. He has to use small windows for any kind of accuracy calibrating his GT. So he's got a GT30, and in order to calibrate it with any sort of accuracy, the problem he's running into is he has to use very small windows.
We was discussing that earlier. We just went over. With the Panasonic, you would get different readings for different window sizes, and that's just an opportunity for improvement down the line. What I calibrate to and what Kevin calibrates to be honest with you, I mean, to get an accurate picture, and what we're seeing right here, this is with standard windows, and also going into the menu.
Not with those extra small ones, standard
window patterns, but one of the keys is aspect adjustment, size 1. Just to give it a little bit more.
Yep.
So that's what we're looking at right here.
Okay. So it's just the dynamic gamma issue
well, that too, yeah. It's just that. I will say if they want more consistent readings, get the fluctuating brightness update, which I want to thank Panasonic for doing, because that was a huge improvement in the quality of the calibration. So get that on there, and you golden.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Question for Kevin.
Yeah.
So we had a presentation earlier from someone from THX explaining the standards that they use to test televisions. So, for example, when you mentioned about the LG set having almost zero contrast, right? And black letter.
Relatively speaking, low contrast.
Yeah, low kind. Yeah, said almost zero before. But the how does this go against, you know, their judges, let's say, or their engineers, and say, yep, this is THX.
You're
definitely
asking me to answer a question they need to be answered. I think it's a pretty good question, actually. In other words, how does a panel with this low contrast ratio achieve certification? I can't answer that. But I mean, they did a lot of other things right. Number one, the color, the gamut, the decoding is all very good. The tracking, the gamma is all very good on the panel. The contrast ratio lacks because of the black level performance. I've worked with THX with one of my clients for several years, but off the top of my head, I cannot remember. On flat, it's not a flat panel manufacturer, so I don't know what the spec for contrast ratio on flat panels is for passing, but I suspect it must be below 650 to 1. But measurements taken off screen, so I don't know. I don't know what the number would be, because they shoot it off screen with a CS2000 Minolta. They don't do on screen. What that number would be in this panel in a black hole, I'm not sure of, because I've never done it. So it's a real good question, but I can't answer it because I simply don't know.
I'm curious if they have the same standard. Like when you introduced the parameters here, you said let's go by contrast as the number one.
Yeah.
Are they in agreement with you on that? You know?
It's not something that I made up and decided to tell you because I think so. It's a study that was done by SEPTI. It's a pretty exhaustive study done years and years ago, and it's all about how the human eye sees. So I would think that yes, I'm pretty sure they will agree. And any television manufacturer, just look at the box. What do you see first? Contrast ratio 2 million to 1. They're putting this spec out in front of everybody because they know that also.
There's an online question?
Yeah.
Well, you know, election year now starts in 2011. And
we're talking politics now?
No, not quite. I'm giving an analogy.
Okay.
So speculation regarding 2012 advancement starts right around the 2011 shootout. And so one of our online members was asking, especially, you know, what the calibrators and other experts, you know, here in the audience think will most likely be the greatest advances made for next year. Now, obviously, that's a question that only some parties even can answer without, right, you know, violating NDAs.
Yeah,
so
but if you want me to
take it under
speculate
advisement.
and guess,
speculate and guess.
Improvements in the fundamentals.
I would say, based on what we found today, that a couple of the manufacturers that we've identified some issues with will work to eliminate those problems, and then I would expect improvements on black level to increase contrast ratio and black level capability. And beyond that, I don't know that I can speculate much beyond that. But that seems to be, I mean, if you look over a 5-year period, you see a vast improvement in a number of things. Black levels going, contrast ratio going up like crazy every year. Color fidelity and color accuracy and the ability to achieve.
Yeah, calibration controls have improved dramatically.
Yes. So, I don't know. I guess I would say that similar to the last several years, I would expect incremental improvements in those areas.
Excellent. Thank you. I have a question of my own on that. Now, this would go more to some of the industry experts. I've speculated about this. I'm just an amateur, so I don't even know whether this is possible, but we get some of these problems with color accuracy, right, sometimes. And one of the things that I've wondered about is, would it even be possible, and if it were possible, would it help if you could have, say, for your CMS controls, instead of just one setting for each of them, you would have two, so you could, say, calibrate the, you know, all three of those vectors, right, at 25% stimulus in red and at 75% stimulus in red. So it would be almost like, you know, what you do with when you're balancing out the grayscale. Is that even technically possible? If so, would it cost a fortune and a half? Or
it's possible,
yes,
but there's no reason for it to be like that was engineered.
Right. I mean, it should be flat in the first place.
Yeah.
Right?
So,
but
it's possible.
Given that sometimes
would you want it? I don't. I mean, that's just.
They should just get it straight out of the gate.
The problem with even if you were to implement something like that is from the manufacturing perspective. Okay, but how many people are going to pay what it would require for somebody like Dwayne and myself to come and do this job now, which is now going to take twice as long as it used to.
Yeah.
The number is so small that it doesn't make any sense for a manufacturer to even, I think, contemplate doing that.
Yeah.
These TVs are so complex already. They take hours of our time to get one done properly. Many hours in most cases now. Some are easier than others, but
took more than just
now we're talking about adding this huge additional component to make sure that we're tracking. And Dwayne's right. I mean, this is not rocket science. This will get fixed. Tracking color, and it doesn't have to be exactly perfect. It has to be close at different luminance levels, and that'll get fixed. So, you know, interesting question, but I doubt it.
Okay.
Sure.
4 o'clock innings now, which should be at the lower level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I start the fight? Is plasma dead or close?
No.
No. The answer is no.
Market share has increased for plasma in the last year. You can go on iSupply or any of those folks and look at it.
2 versus 4 here.
Well,
all the time.
even if you drop the number of manufacturers to 3 majors right now, there's Samsung, LG, and Panasonic have their factories, right? And I think there's one in China. Can't remember the name of the Chinese company that also makes plasma. Okay, so there's like 3 majors: Samsung, Plasma, Panasonic, and LG. They put out tremendous amount of volume, so you can have third-party OEMs off of that. To give you an idea, Panasonic opened their largest factory just maybe a year and a half ago. It was in production, and that can do tremendous volumes. Okay, so you know, we're talking. I think the number was 1 million per month. It's been a while since I looked at those numbers, but if it's totally populated. I don't think it's totally populated.
Sorry, it's not, at full capacity, it's what, 1 million per month?
Yeah. So
they're not at capacity.
I looked at my slides, and that was something like a $3 billion, and it was in yen. And that's changing even more than anything today. Okay? But you know, a company that's putting out that kind of investment is here to stay, and that's what, you know. Obviously, Panasonic is very much in the business to stay with plasma. I can't speak for Samsung.
Oh, very much so. I mean, if you notice over the last couple of years, 4 years ago, I think we made like 3 plasma models. With this year being our biggest year, we now have 8 different plasma models available. And a lot of that has to do with, you know, plasma is the better choice for picture quality. Obviously, the enthusiasts will agree. And also, it's relatively inexpensive to manufacture. So therefore, the consumer gets a price savings, and it's available to them at a better price.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're in it for the long haul. Absolutely.
And I'm glad you brought up the price issue. Those same surveys or studies by, you know, the various marketing companies. I'm surprised, but 720p. These are all 1080, obviously. 720p is one of the most popular selling 42-inch and 50-inch models.
Amen, brother.
Because guess what? If you're going down the, you know,
major 720p component,
the big shot place. Well, ABC invented 720p.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, it's a good format, especially for sports, because it is not interlaced. Okay, it's progressive. So ABC, Wild World of Sports, go, you know. But the point is that 720p is an inexpensive way of doing it, okay? And so manufacturers know that, and people in the big Best Buy stores are snapping up the 720ps. It's a good price performance. It really is. And you know what? If you're the distance from where you are to a 42-inch...
That was going to be my question.
It wouldn't matter. Yeah. If you're 8 feet away or 7 or 8 feet away, do the eye check.
Right.
Sit, look at a 1020 42-inch and a 720 42-inch, and if you think you can see the difference, maybe it's just your imagination. Because
let me know what you're taking. I want some.
But that's a huge point, I think, that's lost on the public, which is that if you pay for a 1080p set, you need to be at a specific critical distance in order to be able to perceive the improvement. And if you're not at that critical distance, then you should get a 720p set because it's a more cost-effective solution. And we find that we did a lot of viewing tests on versus 720p when we made the decision at ABC and ESPN. And 480p, I mean the progressive picture, especially obviously when you're in all progressive displays now, if 480p was beating 1080i in a number of critical tests, and that's the reason that we chose to go with 720. We go with progressive. 720p.
Right. Yeah, it's also particularly advantageous when there's motion. So for sports, it makes a huge difference because vertical resolution with progressive is maintained all the time. With interlace, it's all over the place. More motion, less vertical resolution. So.
2 more online questions. One is for the audience generally, and then the other one, I guess, is particularly for the calibrators. For the audience generally, the question was, did most people here see a substantial difference in picture quality between uncalibrated and calibrated? Did it really make a difference to you? Yes. Anyone want to say no? Hands up for yes? I mean, I did. Okay, so we have a strong. The other one for the calibrators, it's a bit speculative, and it might not even be fair for the context of this shootout. But the question was, do they think that the Sharp Elite if the color issues that it's having get fixed with the firmware update, will in fact knock it out of the park.
That would be my bet, yes.
Absolutely.
Put it close to the fence.
Yeah, I mean, because really that's its only weakness other than off-angle, which is not as strong as plasma.
Right.
And a
yeah,
very minor.
that's unfixable.
It's unfixable, right, but in every other regard, it's doing a great job.
What if you had to compare it with the Sony? Because like Sony also is an LCD. I guess you pointed out the blooming early on. But other than that, I mean...
The off-angle on the Sony is significantly worse, and the blooming issue of, this halo around bright objects.
And even black level as well.
Black level is pretty good on the Sony, but I mean, this thing is so far and away far greater in contrast ratio than anything, that if you get the color right, with those two combinations, and the video processing in it, which is also better in a lot of ways, absolutely. That would be my vote.
Over plasma.
In a very, very bright room, which ones would you say are the top contenders?
Well, an LED for certain is the way to go.
Bright rooms, then it's...
Because even with plasmas that have, the capability of doing a day and a night mode, they're not capable of anywhere near the light output that one of these could be. I mean, maybe not totally accurately, but I can get you an extremely bright picture out of either one of these devices.
What about his question about, would that even be versus plasma, right? Suppose they get the color fixed for the firmware update, even versus the various plasmas, you think that one would still...
In the room, on the wall. For the shootout, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. For the shootout.
Forget the kernels on the wall.
Leave that alone.
With my...
You don't want to touch your baby.
Yeah. It's not my baby, but so it puts it right there.
It's a larger version of what?
The Pioneer Elite 101FD and the 500M, which are the monitors, the smaller version of what we see over there.
But it's a plasma versus an LCD.
Yeah.
But so it's not a larger version. It's different types of displays.
Well, when I'm looking at it dead on, that's all I'm going to look at. Of course, with the LED, with the LCD, yes, you still have to do with the viewing off angle, which that's never going away. That's just a part of it, and that's inherent to the technology. It's almost like image retention is to plasma. It's just inherent to the technology. So, sitting dead on, like myself right now, looking at the 141. If the colors are corrected via firmware, absolutely, it's right there with the 500M and a 101.
Matter of fact, we were both agreeing that this was our choice 2 days ago until we discovered the color issue, which happened after, and that changed our minds. But I agree with him. That would be my vote also.
I mean, I would just like to add to the Sharp Elite. I'm not a big proponent of LCD. I prefer plasma, but coming into the show, the one thing I've seen with the Sharp that I've never seen with any other LCD is when we shoot the contrast ratio with the ANSI pattern, all the LCDs have a tendency of floating and black up, and you lose that dynamic contrast ratio. The Sharp was the first LCD backlit that I've seen that held a true black level.
That's not black.
Right.
And
can hold the black and the white at the same time.
And the white, that's right.
So that's a step in the right direction for LCD, LED.
Well, more of an observation. Looking at the Sharp, the Elite, and the Sony, I don't want to say killed, but put away the Sony for me was its inability to hold the black bars with anything with a bright color on it and got too close to them. So I think it was the Dark Knight footage.
It was bleeding
into the black bars.
Seen that.
So regardless of how good it looks otherwise, it was over at that point.
One thing that concerned me a little bit about the Sharp Elite was when you started having that motion of the technical drawing, with the circles and the numbers on it moving across, and I could definitely see a dirty screen effect underneath on a big bar
in the middle.
The vertical bar.
Yeah. Did anybody else notice that?
Oh yeah.
I saw it.
Was it also on the Sony? I couldn't tell already from this angle, but I don't know whether.
I didn't see it on the Sony. Someone said they saw it on the Samsung as well. You did? Right.
Yeah.
But I definitely saw it on that one. And it was because it was just that vertical thing like that, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't a patch. I just speculated that it had to do with the local dimming zones or something like that.
Well,
it might have just been a small screen uniformity issue.
This goes back to that sample-to-sample variation people were talking about.
That's right.
Robert knows my feeling on this, but he swapped out my first Sharp. The second one has significantly better white field uniformity, significantly better DSC.
Really, it had
Oh,
poor
yeah,
light field. That's
there
interesting.
really was that variation.
Because that's one of the strong points of the panel, frankly. What I measured when I initially evaluated.
How many hours out of the box does the set have to
How many
have
hours
on
do
it?
we recommend you break it in for before you bring somebody in to do it? That depends upon the technology. I would say to be safe on plasma PDP, 200 hours at least, and an LCD, 100. The phosphors actually really need to age more, I think, than a lamp does. A lamp, when it's turned on, is on full bore. No matter what you do with backlight, it's on all the way around. So, I mean, I don't know what you have a difference of opinion in that.
I agree. And I also will say it depends on the manufacturer. Whichever brand you're looking at, it varies. But safe bet, yes, as Kevin said, 200, 100.
David,
I would probably go down and go 150 on the plasma. It really depends on the manufacturer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.